Welcome to Faith in 5, a weekly video devotional designed to discuss practical spiritual concepts in 5 minutes or less. I'm your host, Mark Vandella. Last fall, I had an awesome opportunity to sit next to a new friend. We were shooting some photos around town, and it kind of snuck up on me. It was an awesome opportunity that I didn't know was going to happen, but I had a guy sitting next to me whose family was from Mexico. And it was around the same time, like I'd never met him, right? So we're trying to get understanding, like, where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And then it was right around the time that America politically was doing some stuff with DACA or DACA. I'm not exactly sure how you say it. Kind of all the Dreamers stuff. And I said, hey man, like, how does that affect you or your family? And he said, I'm good. My grandparents came here. I was born here. I'm good. But he said, being honest, if everything goes the way that they're saying it's going to go, my whole neighborhood will disappear. Like, not joking, he said, an entire neighborhood in our city will just be empty houses. And then he jokingly said, and, no more tacos. So he has a sense of humor about it, but I was torn up about this. I wanted to keep asking, but I also didn't know how because it was so far from my reality. We had such a different experience growing up based on where somebody in our family was born. I didn't have to worry about any of that. Nobody ever looked at me different because of the color of my skin or because my parents have Dutch heritage. They happened to, my great-grandparents migrated here when it was acceptable. And so this sparked something inside of me just to continue to ask questions, to get closer to people who I didn't know their stories, that my story was so different from them. And there's a saying, walk a mile in someone else's shoes. And I actually think that our faith asks us to do the same. It's not just a cute phrase. And so we're starting a new series called What Would You Do? Kind of a play on the What Would Jesus Do, WWJD, but obviously, Jesus will impact how we respond. But I want us to ask the question, WWYD, what would you do? And so for this series, for 6 weeks, I'm going to ask you to put aside, just set on the side your politics. And then over here, maybe even at times you'll have to set aside your theology, what you've been brought up and taught, set that aside. And I want to appeal to our humanity. See, I've been having a lot of conversations with people about difficult things. I coach people through conflict in marriage, in business, and one of the things that I've ended almost every conversation with in the last month has been Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Habit 5 is seek first to understand and then be understood. But unfortunately, most of us try to be understood and never seek to understand. And actually, as I've studied this and looked at it, what does Stephen Covey's habits have to do with my faith? This actually has some roots in our faith. It comes from an old prayer. It says, "O divine master, grant that I may not seek to be consoled, but to console, and not to be understood as to understand." And that actually has some correlation to Proverbs 4, 7 through 9. The author is talking about sitting on his dad's knee, and his dad drilled into him, if you want to live life, then get good. He even uses the metaphor. It says, sell everything and buy wisdom. It's more important than anything. And then forage for understanding. Seek, root for it, try to find it. Later on it says, write this at the top of your list, get understanding. And so as I sat with my new friend, in a passenger seat next to me, I was fascinated and appalled at the same time. So I would ask you, what would you do if you were an immigrant? If you were born in another country that currently the political climate or wherever you live is unsafe, what would you do? To what extent would you go to find safety? Would you do things that are illegal? I would. I could admit that. I would find every way to pack into a trunk, to sail a boat, to do whatever I could to get my family safe, even if it cost me my life. I know that's hard. I mean, when we look at it politically, that's wrong and it's illegal. But I'm asking just with our faith for 6 weeks to set politics and set some theology aside. In fact, Jesus, people talk a lot about this and with our faith that Jesus was an immigrant. Jesus, in Matthew 2:13-15, Joseph and Mary left. It says after the scholars were gone, God's angel showed up and told Joseph to take Jesus away to Egypt because Herod was going to kill Jesus. So Joseph obeyed. He got up, took the child and his mother under cover of darkness. They were immigrants. But what does that mean for our faith? What would you do? This week and for the next 6 weeks, I want to ask you to just engage your faith a little bit differently. Look for stories, ask questions, sit next to people that don't look like you. Somebody who might be from another country, and just ask their question. Don't try to figure it all out or solve it or make sure that they understand your stance. Put all that aside and just try to understand them. Because I believe our faith is asking us to seek first to understand. Brene Brown says people are hard to hate up close. This week, your faith is asking you to get closer. Get closer to the issue and find the humanity in the situation.